World of 5FM Radio, bringing you hot, smoldering topics on a weekly basis is important.
It's always a pleasure to be back on your airwaves. That is the Thursday edition of The Burning Issue. Yes, this is what it is. And we are grateful. Hope you had a great week so far. And of course, I would like to acknowledge the fact that we are not only on 5FM radio, but we have our partner radio stations carrying this program live. And let me just go through them. We have Tuta FM in Mansa on 90.7 FM. They are carrying this program and they're covering the rest of Luapula province. Also, Mchinga Radio in Chinsali, covering the rest of Mchinga province on 88.1. And don't forget, we are also live in Kapiri because we are live on ZFM, and that is on 100.3 FM, covering a large number of surrounding areas, including Mpika, Mkushi, Serenja as well. And also live in Central Province in Kabwe, we are on Spice FM on 91.1 FM. That is covering the rest of Central Province. Up north, up on the Copper Belt, we have Platinum Radio in Indola on 99.7. And of course, Chingola, we are live on iWave FM radio on 90.1 FM. And also don't forget to catch us on our Facebook page. We are live on 5FM Radio Zambia. That's our Facebook page. And I'm your host, Zachariah Banda. Now, today we have an interesting guest who will definitely be breaking down the economy of this country, where it stands and where it should be, especially that he is representing the political party. And the political party's name is the Zambia We Want Party. And he is the spokesperson of the particular party, Mr. Muhabi Lungu. It's a pleasure to have you. Welcome to The Burning Issue. I know that the last time you were on this program was way back, and it was then hosted by the late Matipi.
That's right. More than 10 years ago, actually.
I know. So.
More than 10 years ago. Anyway, thank you very much for welcoming me. As always, I'm always happy to be here.
Great.
And may I also say good morning to all of the listeners throughout the country.
Great. Now, we've been looking forward to hosting you on this particular program. And it will be important for us to start off by that you've been around in almost every government, except probably the unit. But I know that somehow, because of your influence as a student then, you still participated in the politics of then. So pretty much in every government, probably except this current one, you have been the development and the underdevelopment of this and the journey generally of this country. But I do also understand that we have a youthful audience that may not really be conversant with who Muhabi Lungu is.
Okay.
And I would like us to start from there. Just tell us.
Before you say I should tell. Oh, okay. All right. I see. Okay, so the question is that, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
Who is Muhabi Lungu?
Well, I can spend a lot of time, but let me just go through the salient factors. Yeah, the first thing is that let me just I think correct the impression that many people have about me regarding me being in every government. The truth of the matter is that I haven't. I have been a civil servant in three administrations. Right. Okay, I've been a civil servant in 3 administrations, and that is the administration of Vamwanawasa. When RB became president, he already found me in the civil service. At that time, when he was in 2009, when he came, I was actually at JICA / ZDA. So he found me there. And then the last government as a civil servant was in the PF government as a diplomat. Again, it was purely a civil service position. So those ones I've been there. The rest of my political career has been spent in the opposition. Has been spent in the opposition. And I think that it's very important to create that distinction. Right. So when I started politics at the national level, I was at the University of Zambia, and I was part of the movement called the Movement for Multi-Party Democracy to bring about a multi-party system. Right. Okay. So fighting against the establishment of UNIP. I was in the opposition. When the MMD won, I was offered a position by President Chilua himself, okay, which I declined. And again, we can speak, I think another day, this is today is not really about me, you just want to, I was offered a position by the president himself, and I declined it because I was not sure whether the MMD at that point were going in the right direction. Within a period of 2 years with the MMD in government, I decided to leave the MMD because I was not satisfied that they had undertaken, and I joined UNIP to oppose the MMD, and I did so for almost all of the time that the MMD was in government. Then afterwards, I was expelled from my own political party. Again, it's a story maybe for another day. Then after that, I went back to teaching at the University of Zambia, and subsequently, I joined the civil servant, not as a politician. Applied through the newspapers. They called me for interviews, and then I was a civil servant at the Ministry of Finance, at Zambia Development Agency. In between, I worked as advisor to economic advisor to the government of Zambia, employed by the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, because I'm an economist by training. In fact, you would call me a political economist, let me say, but practicing basically both. Then in 2011, near the end of 2011, I was asked by Arabi to stand as in Lusaka Central on an MMD ticket, and to be part of his presidential campaign.
Right.
I had some anxieties, but I think he persuaded me because I didn't think that I had a good chance of winning in Lusaka Central in 2011, because I knew that the PF were very strong. But so the decision that was made for me to actually acknowledge the request from Arabi was, let me just say, a tactical one, a strategic one. And you know that we lost. Immediately we lost as MMD in 2011. I mean, I quit ZDA in August, and in September we had lost. I decided to continue with the political process, eventually becoming Secretary General or National Secretary of the MMD under Nevas Mumba, who I supported to be the president of things. And again, I started opposing government, the government front, the patriotic front. I started to oppose it because I think that there are a number of things that they were doing which were terribly wrong. And for me, whenever I see that the government is doing something wrong, I don't shy away from taking a position. And the circumstances in which I then was appointed in the public service by the PF was that in 2014, after President Michael Sata died, may his soul rest in peace, of course. The MMD, not myself, the MMD decided to bring back Rupiah Banda as their candidate. And that was the general feeling of the party. The president then, President Nevas Mumba, was not able to put his personal interests ahead of the interests of the party, and did everything possible to frustrate that issue. Although the demand for Arabi coming was within the constitution of the MMD, and eventually that led into a fight, which subsequently led into people. Arabi was barred by the courts, which he was. When Arabi was then barred, we didn't have a candidate. The party fragmented into three: those who supported the UPND, people like Dr. Msokotwane, Felix Mutati, the current Minister of Health, Levin Goma. They were all part of the MMD. They then went and decided to go and support the UPND without any authorization from the MMD NLC. We held a meeting as the NLC, which was actually chaired by Faustina Sinyango. Because some of the other people had gone there, like the chairman of the party who was coming, Gampande at the time, and so on. And we made a resolution for us, between the three, who do we support? And the party, those of us who had been supporting Arabi, decided to support the PF. At that point, anyway, let's say we decided to support President Lungu.
Yes.
Because that was the issue. There was a negotiation.
Also Arabi had taken a stand because there was a negotiation.
He didn't take a stand automatically. There were negotiations between some of the people who were supporting Balungu to be president in the PF, led by the late Chikwanda.
Yes.
Okay. So there is a story to this which most people don't know, but I address it in a book, which I hope that I'll be releasing sometime next year.
Right. Oh, okay.
But the negotiator basically who persuaded Arabi was by Alexander Chikwanda and others, the late Willie Sanda. And so there was a group that, and then he then said to us, look, this is the negotiations that we can reach. And the idea was that we help the PF win because they would be in government for only 18 months. Then the PF were supposed to give us many of the things which they had taken from us. If you remember, they had taken over 200 vehicles that belonged to the MMD.
Yes.
They had taken containers that had belonged of bicycles, over 1,000 bicycles which had belonged to the MMD, and other regalia. And so the negotiation was that if we could help them finish their term. That is how it was put. If we could help them finish their term, then they will give us our things, and then we can make our own decision whether to be partners again in 2016 or to think. Our view was that if they gave us our materials back, we would be able to reboot and challenge ourselves for the president in 2016, given the debacle which had taken place in 2014. In the end, of course, we helped, and but Edgar won. But then after that, the agreement started to be breached. Okay, again, that's the story for another time. So when I was asked specifically myself to join the PF at a very senior level of the PF, I declined. I said, no, this was not part of the agreement. So I declined, and for a while I was ignored. I'm revealing things which I can prove. I was ignored until I received a phone call from someone very up in the president's office that the president wanted to see me. I said, fine. It was facilitated for me to see me, and again there was an intimation that I should be part of the PF, and I said no. I explained myself. I said that is not what I wanted. Then he says, okay, but you are part of the help. Is there anything that you would want us to help? I said, look, for me to be very honest, my wife, my children think that I've been fighting for too long. I need to just get out of the country and refreshen my mind. So if it is possible, just send me out. It was a request from me. I don't care where, and I don't care at what level. Yeah, that's what I said. I need to get out. I need to go reboot my mind and see the world from a different perspective. Yeah, and that is how I was appointed in the civil service. Yeah. And I remained as a civil servant, not as a politician, until I was recalled. And people appealed to me that I needed to get back in the political process, which I am. And I am a proud member of the Zambia We Want. And I think that the objectives of the Zambia We Want, as is revealed in our party constitution, which we launched, and as revealed in our manifesto, which we launched, and with the colleague political arena, and we are principled people who want to be able to bring a new transformational element to Zambian politics.
Is there anything that you would want to look back and say, the Zambia we want is a Zambia at some point we had, and maybe we lost it along the way, that you feel should come back?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I can say that from an economic point of view.
Yeah.
Okay. From an economic point of view, there was a time in Zambian history, because our manifesto begins with an analysis of where we have been from 1964 to date.
Right.
And we have said that in analyzing where we have been both politically and economically from 1964 to date, there are clearly certain periods in our history which we did very well economically. But there are also periods in our history which we didn't do so well. There are periods in our economic history where we made the right policy decisions. And of course, there were also periods where we made the wrong policy decision. We believe in the Zambia we want, and we've made it very clear that the period from 1964 to about 82 was the period where we had the most levels of industrialization in this country. And what you see in that period before the thing started breaking apart, and if we had a longer show, we can discuss where we think that things began to break apart, even under the UNIP administration itself.
Right.
But there was a period where we did industrialize, where the economy of Zambia was held predominantly by Zambians, okay? Where the economy of Zambia was run predominantly by Zambians, called Zambianization.
Right.
And that we were able to create an environment with a great degree of prosperity. Now, obviously, that began to fade at some point, and I said we cannot debate as to what the issue. But there is a period where we had we were the owners of the means of production. We benefited optimally from the tax revenue that was coming from the mines, although it belongs from the mines and other sectors, although they still belong to us, and we were the guys in charge. And we were able to prosecute a war of liberation to help all our colleagues liberate. So we think that is where we want to be able to get to. We want to get to a Zambia where we, the Zambians, are the majority owners, as at least majority, not everything. Not against foreign direct investment, not against our own local investors who are not what you would call indigenous. We not against them. We think that there is enough room, as Jesus says, there's enough room in my Father's house. But what we've made very clear is that we, the Zambians, must have a significant portion of the ownership of our productive means and our natural resources. Not the situation that it is now, where we are basically hewers of wood. We are basically servants. We are basically just workers, within our own country. Okay, and other people are making decisions on our behalf from South Africa, from Sweden, from wherever, where the mining houses are either domiciled or whatever. We don't think that that is the right issue. Secondly, we do not think that it is correct that even in the space where you give some form of ownership to foreign concerns, and I'm not using this as a derogatory term, I'm using this as a descriptive term, because it's foreign direct investment, where you have got some element of foreign direct investment which is on your resources. You must be also an equitable beneficiary from tax revenue from those mining sector, beyond just 1,000 people. The current government has led us to believe and convince so many other people that it is okay for these mining houses to be given tax rebate, and we should collect as little as possible, because we don't want to create an environment which is bad for them, as long as they employ 1,000, 2,000 people. We are 20 million people. What is 1,000, 2,000 people employed? There are thousands of graduates every year, probably exceeding 50,000 graduates every year. What is 1,000? Now, the sharing of the pie is not equitable between those who bring foreign direct investment in our country and those of us who own the resources which they are processing and they are mining. So the Zambia we want is where we also derive optimum benefits from our resources in this country. So that is from an economic perspective. But I could go on, but maybe you want to interrupt me so you can ask something, so I can go to the next one.
Yeah, because I mean, let's stay with the mining sector, because I mean you've mentioned it. For this government, it will probably be so unfair that that anyone would have asked that this government should consider taking ownership of some of the mines, considering it required a lot of investment, capital investment in most of them, and also considering we are highly indebted as a country.
That's right.
But again, would you still come back and say, okay, fine, the case of Mopani, it should have been a good test for this government to try and run it as fully owned. At the time, it had 100% shares owned by ZCMIH, which is basically Zambians owning the mine.
That's right.
You think that they should have considered that amidst the fact that yes, we were highly indebted and we could not have enough money to...
No, I think that they should have considered it. I mean, clearly, I think that was one of the options. Okay, how best can we still keep this in Zambian hands, but make it productive, feasible, sustainable? Is there a possibility? Now, if you start from that perspective, which is from our perspective as Zambia we want, is non-ideological. The principle is, in everywhere in the world, what you want to do is that you want to have the natural resources that you have predominantly be by yourself. That is what, in America, there's Trump who is saying America first. Okay? Yeah. In Europe, the same. In China, no one is going to go to China and say, I should be a complete owner of a Chinese mineral. It's not possible. The realities in every world is that you want to be the owners. Okay? Now, That doesn't mean that you cannot give foreign direct investment maybe 50-50, or even sometimes you can say, okay, you guys take 60 because we don't have the resources. We'll keep 40 for now, and you agree with them that over a period of say maybe 20 years, 15 to 20 years, the ownership structure will flip. As you know, as the mining is, so you start with 60 because we don't have the resources, but because we don't have the financing, for example.
Right.
And then after a particular time, this thing will flip it to 60-40 or 55-40. There are ways in which you can negotiate, and we are told that our president is very savvy. He boasts. Let me just not say he boasts that is very savvy. And I want to get back to this issue of boasting a little bit later after I ask the question, answer the question. So that was definitely one of the options. Okay.
Yeah.
But if that option was not a feasible one, and we felt that the option was entirely to try and give this to foreign hands, the process that should have been taken should have been a transparent one. Till today, we do not know what transpires regarding Mopani and KCM. Okay? There has been demand, and there have been requests from many people, from the MPs in Parliament, who indicated that according to the Constitution, a transaction of that size should have had an input of Parliament, the legislature, because that is what we all demanded. It didn't go through there, and the government of the day has been making every excuse as to the reason why they didn't take it to Parliament in breach of the law. They've even gone to the extent to say there was no breach of the law. Okay? Now, look, honestly speaking, the Zambian people are not dumb. The Zambian voters are quite perceptive. You can say whatever you want to them and believe it yourself. Don't expect that they will believe your story. That is why government lose, because government always is an echo chamber, thinking that the things they vituperate or speak or tell us, we believe. We don't. We listen. We may not say it, that we don't believe you, just like in any ordinary house. You know, someone might be telling you a story, and just because someone chooses not to oppose what you're saying, it doesn't mean that they have believed what you've said. It means that they've noted and they're using. So till today, we do not know what transpired. They say that there were non-disclosure agreements, etc., 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 and so on. So that is wrong. Now, let me end on this point, on this particular point, okay? The point is this. We know that the perspective of President HH in particular is that he's in love with foreign direct investment. We know that the financing of the UPND during the 23 years that they were in opposition, a significant amount of that money came from foreign companies. We know that. I know that for a fact. Okay? And they cannot even dispute it. Even if they want to take legal action against me, I can prove it. I can go stand in court and prove it, that on such and such I was in a meeting with you, Mr. President, and this one with people like this who are promising money to you and us, and had given you money and had given us money in the MMD. So I'm not talking about conjecture here. I'm talking about facts. Okay? So can you speculate that the reasons why there was a lack of transparency in Mopani and KCM was because there were a certain group of foreign concerns who had been giving money to a political party in the opposition that overwhelmed the government into making a decision which was not in the interest of the Zambian people? We have every right to come to that conclusion. It is not sedition. And if they want, as I said, if they want, they can sue. I will face in court. Because for me, I do not say things which I cannot prove. Never. I've been in politics for 35 years, in and out of government as a civil servant. I don't exaggerate. I don't bluff. I say what I know. So that is the concept. As you said, the Zambia we want. This is not the Zambia we want.
So are you justifying the masses that are basically saying all that we have seen, for example, in the suspension of export duty on precious stones and metals?
Yes.
Speculators have said that this is in an effort to still try and please their sponsors, that they can actually get more money out of it and stuff like that.
And you see, some of it is called deception. Okay. Sometimes in a hurry for you to justify why you're giving incentives to foreign direct investment, which are unrealistic, because that is our view. We're not saying we won't give. Incentives are important, and we do give incentives both to foreign business. It is the quantum of those incentives and the extent to them and the justification you give and the context in which you are giving them. So all of those issues have to be understood. Okay. Now, what I'm saying on this particular issue is this: that we believe that the justification of giving a duty, removing the duty on semi-precious and precious stones, is on the assumption that they are saying, oh, most of these mining houses are, well, not most, a significant part of these mining houses are owned by local people. So we have given tax rebates, some form of tax rebates to local people. Therefore, you should not be too hard on us that we are giving tax rebates on FDR, because we equally do the same to local ones. Now, the difference is this. The mining, there is a categorization between general mining called copper and the big mining and so on. Those are not precious stones. Okay. What we say semi-precious and precious, we're talking about emeralds, amethyst, and things like that of very high value. If you find one Kamalitu stone, if you are lucky, you can get $1 million. If you find one Kama small on this side of the arm I'm raising, you can get a one. People predominantly who have been in this business are not called, even though they are called small scale from the mining perspective, but they are not at the same level with the people who are selling or sending money in this Airtel money, MTN money, and so on. They are not the same level with the farmers, etc., etc. These individuals are people who have got the capacity to obtain very high value. I've met them, I've had meetings with them, because when I was working at ZDA, Ministry of Finance, and so on, we might give them some form of incentives in terms of activity. But to reduce the duty in our thinking as the Zambia we want is wrong. It is wrong. It is better to give tax rebates to the ordinary businesses who are truly small scale, okay, and peasant, not to people who are affluent. Also remember that there are quite a number of government, senior government officials, let me say, and ministers that are holders of those licenses. So I might as well say and speculate that the real reason the duty has been removed is merely to cushion the good life of those who are already affluent at the expense of those who are selling tomatoes, onions on the streets, at the expense of those people who they are destroying because they are making a mess in town. Okay, so we oppose it. We don't think that this duty should have been removed. We think that there are different ways in which we can help semi-precious and precious stone miners who particularly are Zambians. There are different ways, and we've got some of that in our manifesto. But let me also conclude on this one, because I think that it's important. I said you will remind me. President HH is someone who loves to boast and put himself in the limelight as much as he can. In fact, I think that the level of boasting from this president is greater than all the other presidents. I don't remember KK, Mwanawasa, Rupia Banda, even Lungu taking a position where he thinks that he has to boast continuously about his greatness. It is a character flaw for someone who is at the level of a head of state. Let us boast on your behalf. Let us lift you and put us on a pedestal. Don't you put yourself on a pedestal. What legitimacy do you have? So he was in Egypt just, I think last week, boasting in Egypt that there is a particular mine which he resurrected in Northwestern Province, which no other government, no other president ever resurrected it, because only he, the great HH, was able to do it in 46 years. And he's boasting this in Egypt. Now, I know the circumstances of that particular mine which they're talking about in Northwestern Province, because one of the owners, I know him on a personal level. I will not mention his name, but I know them. I worked with them when I was special assistant for Dr. Kaunda. One of the owners of that mine was there, and I know what efforts were being made to try and get that mine sustained. The difficulties in that particular mine, when it was closed 40-something years ago, the price of copper was $3,000 per metric ton. Okay? You have to remember this. Some 40 years later, the price of copper, and there is not the only mine that closed. There were other mines, including some of the mines in Northwestern Province, which have subsequently been developed, not by HH, but by Manawasa and Arabia and others who were not boasting about what they were doing. And some of those mines in Northwestern Province at that point could not be exploited because the price of copper was too low. It was not economically feasible. When the price of copper increased, then they became feasible. Now, this mine that was opened, now the price of copper is hovering between $9,000 to 10, and sometimes it has almost reached 11,000 for metric ton. So one of the biggest factors where some of these mines are now reopening is not because of the greatness of Bali, the emperor of Zamunda. It is not. It is because the circumstances in terms of pricing and feasibility has changed. The second thing is that I'm sure you would agree with me that if I was having an interview with you here, even just 10 years ago, the equipment that is here would not be the same equipment. I'm sure you would agree with me.
True.
I'm sure you would agree that if we go 20 years back in Zambia, we had those Tumalitu. We didn't have smartphones. We had what? We had those Tumadao things, pim, and so on. Okay. If we even go further back 30 years, did we have did we have smartphones or did we have mobile phones?
No.
We didn't. We did not have. We had hookup phones, and in the beginning it was big Vimadao, whatever, and so on. 30 years later, technology just in telephonia has tremendously changed. In videos, in music, the technology available now in the mining sector is far superior to what the technology was in 46 years ago. So it is probable that those who are now investing now have got a higher price, they've got a higher technology, and the environment is clear for it to do. Now, because of those, for you to be going to boast to people who know more about mining than you, because that is another problem with our president. Our president gives the impression that he's a connoisseur and knows every subject more than the people who are trained there. Okay? I mean, he's really got this irritating pattern of self-glorification, which is very disturbing. And for me, it irritates me
I
quite
hope
a
you're
bit.
not mistaking that from confidence.
No. I am telling you the truth. And let me also say that I am not insulting. Although I choose my words very carefully.
Right.
It's irritating, meaning that it is annoying for a head of state to boast as much as our president boasts. It is extremely annoying because he is exposing in some areas that he may not be as educated and as savvy in some of the issues he's saying, because people who know more look at him and say, but our president surely can he be saying such things? Those guys who are sitting in the investors, the investors are very savvy. Before they decide to come to your country, they investigate your country, they look at your history, they look at the mining sector, they are trying to determine, is there a way in which I can invest in that country and make money? So they're not stupid, okay? They're not idiots. Those people who are being addressed, they are people who are very clever. And so when you have a head of state coming to tell them and boasting of things which they have already found out maybe before you, is a bit disturbing. So I wanted to point that out because it's very important. Again, I repeat, my aim is not to be disrespectful to the president. He's my president. I didn't vote for him. Other people, enough Zambians voted for him, but we hired him to be our servant. And I, as a Zambian, has got every right to assess the performance of the servant I have hired. I will not kneel down and be afraid to say I'm irritated by my servant, because irritation is not he said that, it's not an insult. Okay. So I just wanted to make that point very clear and very succinctly. The president should not think that the rest of us cannot think.
Now
he says the things he says.
Yeah, let's get down to the Zambia We Want party. Yeah. And I think that you are the third person that I'm hosting from this particular political party.
Yeah.
But what is of interest to me is how your party perceives that when the moment you get into government,
yeah,
your priority will be to amend the constitution and more so targeting to reduce the powers vested in a president.
That is right. Okay.
Just tell us why you think that is important.
So far we've discussed economic parameters, which I think that we've got a good idea of where we are going. Yeah. And because our manifesto is almost 70 pages long, of course we will do small
Breakdowns,
summaries,
yeah.
as we go forward.
Right.
I encourage people to read it and to be critical, as much as critical as.
Is it available online?
Yes, it is on our website.
Okay.
And because really we are a party which is still new, we are still working out on the modalities to be as widely covered as possible. We have got a long-term agenda for us. We want this party to outlive those of us who have been part of its foundation. We are not the only ones. There are some people stretching back to 2-3 years ago, which were part of this thing before some of us even came along. So it is a collection of people. And that is very, very important. This political party doesn't belong to any single individual. No single individual, which is a very big difference between many of the political parties that are in Zambia today. Majority of the political parties that are in Zambia today are owned and are known by one individual, usually the leader. Again, this is not, I'm not attempting to insult anyone. I'm trying to be just truthful, and I think you know that the majority of political parties, there are people even say my party, meaning that it's mine. And if you don't agree with it, you can bugger off or something like that. So for us, the difference is this, that not only did we launch the manifesto, but we also launched the constitution of the party. And I'm holding it. Those who are maybe streaming on live, whatever, can see that we have a constitution. And this constitution states that this party is an institutionalized political party. That power within the Zambia we want shall not be held by any single individual, particularly not by the presidential candidate of the party. The power in our manifesto is strictly given to the Congress, and in between Congress, the people who shall guide the party will be the National Leadership Council. And the leader of that National Leadership Council is not the presidential candidate. Please hear me clearly. It is the chairman of the party. Currently, our chairman of the party is Mr. Professor Kalifungwa. He is the head of the party. We have an acting president in the name of Ernest Mwansa. I am an acting a person of spokesperson. We have all of our position are acting. And the way our constitution is designed is to ensure that the one who is the most powerful in the party, the chairman, because he's the most powerful, we have denied him the opportunity to be the presidential candidate. Because we want a clear demarcation between the power and the presidential candidate. Okay? So if the chairman of the party, who is the head of our party, wants to become president, that person must resign 2 years prior to the elections of the presidential candidate, because we want this party to run professionally and institutionally. Again, I would urge that all of the people who are listening to me go through our constitution and we will defend it. All of us have sworn a pledge that we will defend our constitution. We've also put in our constitution safeguards to ensure that the government does not do to us what they have done to the PF. Go to this registrar of societies and start messing around there using one of our own members in our party so that the government can have plausible deniability to say we are not involved. Again, as I said, government should not think that the people of Zambia are somehow, what do you say? We are mentally challenged. We are not mentally challenged. We are not. So our constitution is very good. Now, let me link the constitution to the Republican constitution, which is the question you asked, because I just spoke about a snippet.
Yeah.
Our manifesto now, you will see that as a crying motto there, we've said the transformational agenda. But we begin by saying delivering prosperity through good governance. We think that good governance is in fact the key towards prosperity. If your institutions of governance are not good, you are doomed. No matter what you do in economic terms, no matter what you do in social terms, no matter what you do in philosophical terms or in religious terms, you are doomed. Because the institutions that deliver economic prosperity, social prosperity, are institutions of government. The Bank of Zambia is an institution of government. Parliament is an institution of government. The judicial system is an institution. If those institutions are not operating independently, if they're not operating professionally, if they are susceptible to be manipulated by the executive, the president who you have employed for their own benefits as UPND or HH, then you have killed the system. It is the reasons why in 1990 the people of Zambia said we no longer want a one-party state. The reason was that we didn't want government to be dictated to by the whims of the party in government and its own survival. That was the issue. And we have been struggling for the last 30 years to create a demarcation between the party in government and government. And every government that has come since then, probably with the exception of the Mwanawasa and Arabia administration, I must say this, all the other ones have tried to infuse the party into government, returning to the pre-1991 situation where it's the pig. We used to call it the pig, party and its government. So that, as I said, that Levi Ngoma, who is a special assistant for the president, a civil servant, can go in Petauke and start campaigning in Petauke. That is the pig, the party and its government. Okay? That a PS, I think it was at Home Affairs, can go to the hospital bedroom of JJ Banda to start negotiating on behalf of a party, because what he was saying, no, you must withdraw, that you are kidnapped by this and this, for the on behalf of the party. Yet he is a public servant. And we see nothing wrong with it. That judges can be fired by the president in a matter in which those judges perceived ruled against him 3 years ago when he petitioned the government. That is promoting the agenda of the party or the individual, the candidate. So the institutions of government have been corrupted because you want to promote the party and its government. So we have said in the Zambia we want, we think that the first thing that requires to be done is that the institutions of governance must go back to governance, to the people and not to the party. And we will start by amending the constitution. And we will not do it on our own. We want to be able to do this with all of the stakeholders that are there, with the Law Association of Zambian, with the NGOCC, with the churches and everybody else, so that we can go back to all of those commissions that made promises and undertakings of what the Zambian people wanted. The Zambian people wanted as a constitutional government. And we promised that if we were given the opportunity to govern, we would do it in the first 3 years. So that process of amending the constitution and reducing the powers of the president in particular, so that the president is not a monarchy, so that the president is not a ruler but a governor, so that we, the people of Zambia, are not the ruled, we are the governed. Okay? These are not semantics, they're real issues. Okay? So we want to be able to do that with the help of everybody else. We, as the Zambia we want, are prepared to swear, sign on a paper, whether it is with a contract with the Zambian people and the churches and so on, to say that if we are given the opportunity to do this, we will do this within 3 years. President Chilwa made that promise in 1990. He reneged on it. Instead of making the constitution more democratic, it was made by barring Kaunda and putting in clauses that barred other people and made other people foreigners, etc., etc. Okay. Again, there was an by others. The UPND made that undertaking. In fact, they had other political parties like Z. Okay, the Zambia Empowering for Development, KBF's party, Mutati's party, and I'm deliberately saying these because it's their parties. And if they want to prove to me, those people, that is not their parties, we can come on a debate here to prove to each other whether that party doesn't belong to A or not. As we can prove that this party doesn't belong to Chairman Kalifungo. We can prove to you that this party doesn't belong to Ernest Mwansa or to Muhabi Lungu or to Bob Schinga or to Maisi Nyangwe or to George Chisa or whatever. We can prove to you that it doesn't. Okay? And that is why we've made our constitution public. People can go through it and so on. So what we are saying is that within the first 3 years, we want to undertake a process in which we make all of the institutions of government, independence of the judiciary, independence of the legislature, and we even have got proposals of how the legislature can function better than it has been in this country, and how the civil service should be completely separated from the party. and from any political party. All this nonsense, for us, it's nonsense, and I'm proud to say, where the sitting arrangement and faction and so on, you start saying, oh no, after the president, he should be the chairman of the ZW, then whatever. All of those, that is one party mentality, which doesn't happen in Europe, which doesn't happen in any of the European countries, which doesn't happen in England, which doesn't happen in Australia, that doesn't happen in Japan. It only happens maybe in Russia. Or other systems where you've got a one-party state. We are not a one-party state. It's okay for it to happen in China, because China have said that for us, the party is the Chinese Communist Party. So you can have the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party being represented. We have said in this country that there has to be a separation between the state and the political parties. So you can't have officials of the Zambia we want to preceding government officials. No, there has to be that separation, and we undertake it.
Okay? So does that mean that it will be rare, or there will be nothing to say that your government will not be able to appoint party cadres in government positions like permanent secretary, for example?
Yes,
because obviously you have pointed out some of these PSs who you feel they are there not as civil servants but as representative of the party in government.
Yeah,
but in your case, if that is done and you reduce the powers of the president, for example, just give us an idea of how then appointments will be made for the judiciary, for example.
That is right. Yeah. Clearly, what I'm saying is that there is going to be a clear demarcation between the civil service and the party. There has to be a clear demarcation. Okay, that does not mean, and it would be erroneous of me to create the false impression that does not mean that you cannot have talented Zambians who are in a political party, for example, or are sympathetic to a political party, that cannot be considered for public service position. Right. The only difference is that there has to be a rigorous process of appointment, which we will do to ensure that we are not bringing party cadres who are going to be party hacks to try and mutilate the civil service. Now, take me as an example. My brother, I became prominent in this country as a public figure. And as you said, there are a lot of young people who don't know. But I became prominent in this country back in the 90s. Right. And I became prominent first and foremost because I was a special assistant to Dr. Kaunda in his office of the UNIP president, and by some extension, actually, in the office of the former president. But that can be explained at another, so I can create that demarcation. Right. I served and worked with Dr. Kaunda both as a companion, as a political office, as his employee, as special assistant, and later almost as a what you would call a grandfather, or what you might call it, or a father, and whatever, and so on. When Dr. Kaunda retired and Tivienje took over the party, and I was expelled the party again, it's a story we can tell each other later. Yeah. I told you that I went back to the university to teach, the University of Zambia to teach. And after I taught for a year or so, I decided to look at the jobs, and I decided it would be a good thing maybe for me to consider going either in the UN system, in the private sector, or in the government. And I saw an opportunity when they advertised for the job, which I eventually applied for and got, not using any contacts whatsoever. When I became a civil servant, okay, I was a civil servant. In the beginning, when I joined the civil service, there was some trepidation and concerns by my colleagues who were saying, but what is this famous politician doing being a civil service? Maybe he's been planted here, etc., etc. And they all came to realize that I was a civil servant truly in nature, okay? Because that demarcation has to be made. It doesn't mean that simply because I was a political figure that I cannot be a public servant. In fact, I can tell you that when I was applying for jobs, after I had become special assistant to KK, I would be called for interviews because my CV is fairly rich. I'm sorry if it sounds arrogant, but I'm being factual because my CV is fairly rich. I would be called for interviews, whether it is for UN jobs and private sector jobs and so on. And it took me more than a year to find a job because everyone was saying, no, Mr. Lungu, you are qualified, you are so, but you've got this political name. How is government going to look at us if we employ you? Okay? Because the MMD was still in power and I was known as a unipist. How are we going to look at you? I lost so many jobs on the basis of people fearing that I would associate their organization
to a particular
party. So when I went for the interview by the Public Service Commission, for that, they said to me, and I'm telling this story because it's within the context of what we are discussing. They said to me, first introduce yourself, what you've done, and so on and so on and so on. And I decided that given the fact that I had lost so many jobs, I was not considered for Germany, even though people told me that I was number one or whatever, but the issue of your political thing was a bit toxic. I started by saying to that committee, I said to them, Chairman, I addressed all of them. Can I be candid to you? I think I was 34 or 35 years old, somewhere around there. I'll calculate. I was still fair. And I said to them, look, please allow me to be candid to all of you. I think that it may be perhaps a waste of your time if I start introducing myself to who I am. Because I'm pretty sure that the majority of you here seated here, and it was a panel, I think, of about 12 people, okay, with secretaries. You know how the Public Service Commission. I said the majority of you people here, if not all of you, already know who I am. I'm quite certain of that. And I went to tell him that I have been going for interviews. I think maybe this is my 15th interview or something. And I've not been considered in all of those issues, not because I don't have the capacity or my CV is not rich enough. The reasons I've lost all those jobs is because people have been afraid to employ a person who is clearly has got a political past. And I said to them, I think that this is unfair. I'm a 34 or 35 years old person, or 30, I can't remember exactly. I said, I'm a person in my mid-30s. I mentioned the age, who made. Are you telling me that if I made a mistake in doing so, a noble issue, that I should be excluded for the rest of my life from getting a decent job? Is that fair? And are we saying that the right? And I went on to speak to them. So I am pleading with you that interview me, okay? Consider my CV, and if you think I'm the best candidate for this job, you have to be compelled to give me a job. Don't dismiss me on the basis because I was special assistant of KK and you think that I'm going to bring politics. I know how to demarcate between being a politician and a civil servant. And after I finished, I thought that they would tell me to get out because I was very strong. I just said, and I told my wife that I'm going to say this. If they tell me to get out, I don't mind, because I've been losing jobs because people are saying, oh, who is going to manage you? So, some people used to say that, Mr. Lungu, in one interview, I was told this by an interviewer, Mr. Lungu, you worked for the former head of state, powerful person, and so on and so on. You've been exposed to this and that and that. This job you're applying in this one is a small job. That's what I was told in an interview. And in any case, at the level you have worked, who is going to supervise you here? I was asked that in a thing. And I said, look, I'm a young person. I can be supervised. Just because I worked for a big person doesn't mean that I'm arrogant and I will not be supervised. And I told him that there. So I said, either I lose the job because I'll be seen as rude or not. When the chairman came, he said, Mr. Lungu, you are right. That everyone here on this table, we all know who you are. We know your history. You are a pretty famous individual, that he said. We are going to evaluate on the basis of the questions you're going to answer. Your CV was already strong enough for us to call you for the interview and blah, 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 blah. And so we will give you a fair chance. I said, I'm very grateful, Mr. Chairman. They started to fire me these questions, and I got the job. And I was advised later, look, they've taken a risk and whatever, and so on. I said, I know the difference between being a politician and a civil servant. And I can tell you, as I was telling you earlier, I've been in the civil service 3 times. When I was deputy permanent representative of our embassy to the United States, to the United Nations, you did not hear me making any political statement. I was quiet for 7 years. There were others.
There's a reason why, because yesterday when I put up your post for this program, someone was saying, is this man still alive?
Yeah, that I kept quiet for 7 years. Of course, because I'm a political figure and people know I am, people would consult me privately on a number of issues. And if a minister comes to New York or to Kinshasa, oh, Mr. Lungu is here. I need to consult you. Can you come to the thing? I have to be careful whether my ambassador will be offended that the minister has called me instead of the ambassador.
Yeah.
I had to deal with issues like that.
Right.
But I think and I would say to the ambassador, I have been requested by such and such a minister for a discussion. And I would also often tell these people that, look, although I still have a political name, I am here as a civil servant, and I don't want to create any friction with my ambassador.
Right.
So if you can find a way to let him know that you want to discuss with me matters outside the office, not that I'm trying to superintend.
Yeah.
I've had to deal with things like that all my life. But why I'm giving you this history is because I want you to know that there must be a clear demarcation between a civil servant and a politician. But that you cannot exclude political figures from the civil service because they are political. That would be denying yourself of very competent manpower. The only thing must be is that there must be a process of recruitment, and there must be very clear rules and regulation of how a person must behave once you are in State House. So the issue I gave you of Levy was an MP. And he was a member of parliament when I was national secretary of the MMD. That is what I've told you.
Yes.
He stood in an election in Sinda and lost. The government decided, the president, HH, decided to appoint him as a civil servant. I can't say that you can't appoint Levy to be a civil servant. But as soon as Levy, who was a politician, has been appointed as a civil service, all political activities by Levy must cease. I did it. When I was asked to resign, to stand as a member of parliament.
How do you separate him from politics? The fact that the position he holds is advisor to the president on politics.
Yes, but advisor on president to the politics as a civil servant, not as a politician. If the president wanted Levy to be a politician, he should have appointed him at State House. That is a political position, not advisor. And I can tell you that I can bet you and I can provoke you, even under a one-party state, political advisors did not go on the stage to campaign, even in a one-party state. That is not the job of a political advisor. You go to TV and talk about political advice issues which you have advised. You don't go and campaign. You can talk about the policies, the political policies that the president has made. You can do all of that, but you cannot go and campaign. And what is worse, you cannot go start distributing monies to churches for a campaign, which is even illegal, by the way. Okay? And as I said, I'm bold enough to say that because if the state wants to take me to court, let them take me. I will prove to them in the court, if the judicial system will be fair on me, that is a clear line. So these are the issues we are saying. So in answer to your question, I think that it would be disingenuous for me to say that political parties should not ever consider political players, but there must be that demarcation.
Indeed.
And now, they must behave like civil servants once they're in the civil service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, I think initially I asked you a question to say, look, in as far as the Zambia we want is what you are championing now. Do you feel that we needed and we should have kept? Now, let me link, which I surely know that you were a civil servant at the time.
Yeah.
The Vision 2020 was 2030 rather, was effected. Now, my question is, was or is Vision 2030 a document that was meant to liberate Zambia economically in many ways? Did we also make a mistake that we did not analyze this document?
Yeah.
That it's a document that any party that comes into government must begin to not ignore it, but start aligning their intentions to the vision.
Okay, now let me say to you that I was at the Ministry of Finance when the Vision 2030 was being prepared. Not only was I at the Ministry of Finance, I was actually one of the key persons in developing of that document. It came as a subset of 3 documents which we prepared. While I was at the ministry, and these were the following documents. There was the core document at that time was the 5th National Development Plan.
Yes.
And the 5th National Development Plan was the first reinstated development plan, because when the MMD came into power in 1991, they abolished development planning. They said that the private sector would take care of anything. So if you remember, there used to be NCDP, a National Commission for Development Planning under UNIP, which the MMD quickly abolished, I think within a year or 2 of them coming back into power. One of the issues that I helped to push, not that it was me. I mean, I don't want, because me, I always work as a collective.
Right.
Yeah, like in the Zambia we want. I can never claim that I wrote the manifesto, because I didn't. Because we wrote it. All of us as a collective, everyone brought in their particular specialty in this matter. But I was very key at the Ministry of Finance in developing the 5th National Development Plan and the Vision 2030, which gave a longer term view. But we also developed what was called the district development plans at the time. So there were 3 documents: the district development plan, the 5th National Development Plan, and the Vision 2030. In fact, I can tell you, I don't think I would be outside my armpit. I was given the task, because one of the reasons I was pushing for the most aggressive pushers for this with Dr. James Mulungushi and some of the colleagues that we were working with. And I was given the task of writing the concept paper that integrated all of these 3 documents, the Vision, and so on and so on. And that concept paper was the basis upon other people then made comments. We refined it, all of us as a collective, and then came up with what we needed to do in the planning department of the Ministry of Finance. And eventually I was appointed as focal point person towards the development of the 5th National Development Plan. So I'm talking about documents which I'm very well versed with.
Right.
Now, your question has been, should we have constitutionalized the
Vision
2030? We thought about it at the time, but I think that our view was that it would be too much of a bind to successive governments if we put it in the Constitution, because the Constitution should not contain everything. Okay, because if the Constitution contains too many things which are subject to people's whims in terms of where they are going, then every successive administration that comes is going to want to change the Constitution. And if you change the Constitution sequentially all the time, then the document becomes useless for purposes of what you wanted to achieve. Yeah. So our view was that in terms of governance and in terms of institutional governance, there are basically 2 philosophical positions. There is a position which we say these are hardcore issues which need to be defined clearly within the constitutional framework of a country, or in the legal, what do you call the legal processes, procedures, and process and regulations within the country. But there are also things which we call norms. Okay, just norms. These are not codified; they're put in law, but they're norms, and they're norms which are strong. Everyone who deals with that particular norm, that this one has to be preserved. So, for example, in our traditional society, there was no law, okay, that said that when I meet an adult on the street, that I should step outside and greet him, or mulibwanja ambuye, and so on. There is no law that says that, but it is a norm. And that norm is so strong that everybody does it. It is as good as law, but it is not codified. Okay. All right. Now, we thought that if we all have a norm in terms of the long-term planning of the document, that it would suffice that every government would make it as a reference point. And indeed, it has happened, because there is no government that has come after Mwanawasa. Arabi's government, Michael Sata's government, Lungu's government, even the current government, have stuck to the original documentation which said Vision 2030. None of them have rejected it. And what is even more is the fact that each of these governments have now moved from the 5th National Development Plan to the 6th, to the 7th. Now we are in the 8th. It's a sequence. And I must tell you, when we were coming up with the name, the Fifth National Development Plan, again, I don't want to take all the credit for it, yeah? But I insisted that we must name it the Fifth National Development Plan. I can tell you again some of these things. Honorable Ngande Magande was quite opposed to calling it a Fifth National Development Plan, because he thought, now we're going back to, it looks like whatever. So I insisted. I said, when we were doing the research for this, we started with the first National Development Plan of UNIP in the I think the first one was in 1960. Anyway, I forget, but it was in the early 60s. And when UNIP then cut programs and went back to the IMF, they had to stop. Was the fourth National Development Plan. Then in between, we started with the Poverty Reduction Strategy paper, and then there was another document, a transitional. So when we now went back to full-scale planning, we said we can't call it any other name, because this country is one. The last plan was the fourth. So this one has to be the fifth. And I insisted. I know there were some people reluctant. Fortunately for me, the first key speech that was written by Magande was given to me to write as a first draft. And I kept on repeating. And other people tried to remove it. I said, no, I played as much influence I could so that we could still refer to the plan as, and one of my greatest allies in ensuring that we call it the Fifth National Development is the current Minister of Finance, Honorable Sokotwali, who at the time was Secretary to the Treasury, at the thing. Some of my colleagues who also agreed with me were the current Secretary to the Treasury. Felix Nklukusa, who we worked together. We're at the same level at the time. So again, as I'm saying this, I'm being very careful to introduce my role in some of these processes, but to be very honest that there is no development in this world which depends on one individual. That all of you must be able to do it as a collective. Even when you are the president, it's not your achievement for you to start be saying, I. Oh, I the great who. Oh, I did this. It's not you, sir. There are ministers, other ministers that give advice who are more competent than you in many areas. There are other offices. Don't continue giving us the impression that you've got an inferiority complex so that it gives you the duty to always be reminding us of how rich you are and how great you are. It is demeaning to yourself.
This is the Thursday edition of the Burning Issue here on the Happy World of 5 FM radio. And our guest is Mr. Muhabi Lungu. He is the Zambia We Want Party spokesperson, acting,
because we are going to go to a Congress.
Indeed.
Yeah. We hope that we will be able to find the money. You know, the politics is a very expensive game.
It is.
One of the things that we have vowed in the Zambia We Want is that we don't want to go to any single person who will fund the party because we don't want that person to own the. In as much as we don't want any president in our party or whatever to own the party, we don't want a single financier. So we go out to people to ask. I mean, ask money, and it is our intention in one form or another, we will hold a Congress in which we will elect office bearers.
Great. So we'll take phone calls now so that, listeners can interact with you on 0955-221515. That's the number that you can get us on. Once again, the number is 0955-221515. Let's take this one. I'll ask you to have your headsets on.
Okay.
Good morning and welcome to the Burning Issue. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Good morning, Lucy.
This is Zach. You're tuned into 5FM.
5 FM. Sorry.
Your name?
Calling from Kabata.
Mark.
What is the name?
Good morning.
Mark.
Yes, please.
5 FM. Good morning.
Good morning. Please go ahead.
Good morning, a new politician. Welcome to the battlefield.
Thank you. It is good to be back in the battlefield.
That doesn't make you new, though.
No, I'm not new.
Yes.
I'm listening since you started your program with Zach.
Right.
My brother, I want to advise you. Zambian, yes, according to explanation, one type of feature to the oxygen of democracy. I could listen your party manifesto and the way I explain. to me, I want to find out from you as a new political party. You know, this country was being damaged by the former regime. If you were a youth president to rectify the problem we are going through today, if you are trying to say the current government is making some mistakes here, then and then, the question I'm asking to you, if you are a president, you are handling this pressure which my president has handled, and in politics you have been doing, it's a laugh because you are finding peace. Not if you could come time of the patriotic front. I could see you can't do talk of the private. So today in Zambia we have got peace. Because President Hitler has brought peace in this country. He has brought democracy in this country. They always saying against him. So my brother, tell the manifesto to the Zambian people. Never condemn what Hakainde is doing. Stick to your right. And make sure that you convince Zambian people.
Thank you.
Politics in Zambia, my brother, is very difficult here in Zambia. And the way of saying is very expensive. You need to put so much of you.
Thank you, Mark.
So
Thank you, Mark.
as we are starting campaign for 2026, see us as callers, as we are callers for FH. And we mean well to President Hakainde, and this country is moving in the right direction. Zachariah.
Thank you very much, Mark, for coming. Thank you. Thank you very much. Your minute is up, and we have to leave it there. We'll take some more on 0955 221515. That's the number you're calling us on. Good morning, and welcome to the burning issue. Please tell us your name and where you're calling us from.
Thank you very much. Zach, how are you?
Not too bad, thank you.
Thank you very much. The guest today, how are you?
I'm very well, and how are you?
There is one time.
Your name your name and where you're calling us from?
Oh, my name is Elvis. I'm calling in Lusaka.
Elvis, a pleasure to have you. Please, you've got a minute. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. There was one time I was wondering exactly to say, where has Mr. Muhabi Lungu gone? You remember I asked one some time back to say, where are those politicians we had, the Muhabi Lungu?
Right.
Good that you are back, sir.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you think it's good.
Thank you. Yeah, I was enjoying how you were explaining. Indeed, when you were assistant to President Kaunda, you were very young by then. You were even surprised to say, Kaunda, Abakudubaya Salomo Aike, Pani Mupando. And you did a very exceptional job.
I'm grateful.
You did a fantastic job. Coming to the topic, first of all, let me applaud and thank President Hakainde for visiting the flood-prone areas where he saw the disaster firsthand for himself. This is how a president should be. The president should go and see what the people are talking about, rather than hearing it from other people who could be telling lies. So the president said he's going to drain Lusaka, of which we are very happy that if Lusaka is drained, no one is happy with the floods which are there. Even as we stay here in Mazaki, there are no floods where I stay, but there are floods just near me along the stream, Wakaka stream, Kachoka Kwakari Kiriki. People are suffering, and indeed suffering in those floods. So, Mr. President, kudos. Coming to the issue of the economy, Mr. Muhabi Lungu, I think we haven't done a lot as a country, starting from a unit which laid the foundation for us. There came MMD, where everything was destroyed by the new regime, which made away with everything which Kaunda left. They didn't want anything to do with what Kaunda left, and they destroyed it. So there came democracy, and we came to have a free, liberalized economy, whereby the price controls were removed and nothing seen. but we didn't take into consideration that in the future, all these things we are doing are going to affect us. You see, we are too much politically charged. We are not working together as a country. This is why we have gone down. You see that every day, Mr. Muhabi Lungu, people, instead of giving solutions, people are just criticizing, people are just talking ill of each other, especially you leaders. This has come to even divide this country on the political lines, which is not good. I remember when President Kaunda was there was no slogan of tribalism. Everything he was thinking, everyone was thinking that maybe we are one tribe, and it was very good. Me, I've traveled a lot. I've been to Western, I've been to Eastern, I remember myself.
And your minute is up. Your minute is up, Elvis.
So, yes, let me conclude in this way that. So, what we want is you politicians to unite this country. And the President in the HLM, I think he has done a lot to unite this country. Thank you very much, Wazaki.
I appreciate it. Thank you for calling. Always a pleasure to have you, Mr. Elvis. Let me take one more call, and then I will give you an opportunity to react on 0955-221515. That's the number you're calling us on for you to get through to this conversation. And our guest is Mr. Muhabi Lungu. He is the Zambia We Want party acting party spokesperson, obviously in his acting capacity. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Mr. Zach?
Not too bad, thank you. Please share your name and where you're calling us from.
My name is Mr. Collins.
Collins.
Yes.
And where are you calling us from, sir?
I'm calling you from Lusaka, Zambia.
Please go ahead. You've got a minute.
Mr. Muhabi Lungu, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Collins.
I'm happy to hear your voice after a long time ago.
I'm grateful.
So we welcome you to the political arena as usual.
I'm grateful.
One thing I'm not being happy, and I have to be honest with you leaders.
Yeah.
Sometimes we must have that heart of just to give to other new blood to come into history. Because you people have been in government for the time of memorial. Are you not satisfied for what you have? When are you going to allow new blood, new boys and girls from the University of Zambia to take mantle of this country? When are you going to allow that? But all that, it comes because of selfish. Although people are odd, but they still have that mentality of selfish and greedy. This is why when you go to the radio, you don't speak things which can bring development in this country. It's rather of dividing the country. You go and give the name of the political party which everyone can participate to say Tons Alliance. Umozi Kumawa. Chakuti Chakuti. Those are the tribes, names which you bring into political arena, which should not be allowed. I'm happy because your party, it is called is it Zambia what?
The Zambia We Want.
Which is good because that name it touches all tribes and all Zambians. But you bring the names of tribe and dividing people. We shouldn't allow that nonsense in this country.
Thank you very much, Collins.
All the best, my guy.
Thank you very much.
Keep on trying, because one day you want to become a president or not being a permanent secretary or whatever. We wish you all the best. Try hard. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Collins. Very important question, as far as when will we transition to the young, and we are always calling them, they are the future leaders, and they are never, and it's important because I think I've raised this issue with the acting president of Zambia We Want before, to say how are the youth, how is the youth incorporation in this political party? Obviously, from what we see, as much as you are all in your acting positions, it's quite the old, the been around individuals, and how then do we get to see youth incorporated in this Zambia We Want?
I think that because you have started with this,
Yeah.
let me start with the last question, and
Right.
then I'll move back
Great.
to the others.
Great.
I want to acknowledge to you that it is very, very important to have young people get involved in the political process. And we in the Zambia, we want.
Because obviously you're speaking from experience.
Yes, and I think you saw where I was going. I was speaking from experience.
I know, right.
I was saying that we have been trying to attract as many young people as possible to be members of the National Leadership Council. Right. And I can tell you this is a fact. I hope that I'm not going to create difficulties for them, but I will not mention their names.
Right.
We do have young people who are in the National Executive Committee, which are fairly young. But some of these people have got jobs, okay? As I said to you, the problem with being in the political process in this country, especially if you start too long, it may discolor you so bad that you may never get another job in your life. Yeah. And it could be the end of you, okay? So a lot of young people who are competent, who have got things to do, and who think that they can give value, don't want to always be known, particularly if you are a member of the opposition. So if you're in the government, maybe it's okay. The only fear is that, no, if I'm young, if there's a change of government, the next government will come and punish me. But you can take a risk if you're in the government and you're young. But to take a risk, young people who have got something to add, to come and be part of the political process is extremely difficult. That is one of the answers. So we are not close to this. My own example, as people who know me, rightly put, when I was special assistant to KK, I was 28 years old. When I was formally appointed, although I had started working with him a year earlier, but when I was formally appointed, I was 28 years old. And I have just told you how difficult it was for me to get a job after I left as a technocrat, as a person with an education and so on. Yeah. It was extremely difficult. And I think that it may have been just by grace that I am still alive today with several jobs, because I almost got sacked. And when I made the decision to be part of the political, as a technocrat at then, because I was teaching, as I told you, I was teaching at the University of Zambia, and I was also teaching at the Lusaka International School. I was teaching economics, A-level and O-level. And when I quit, somehow there was an article in the I think it was in the Daily Mail, because I was already at that point I'd already become a public figure, that I had quit my job. The insults I got from some of my peers and my colleges, not directly to me, they would speak to my friends. How can Muhabi take such a stupid decision? As in Vela Maning, against that in Indan, blah blah blah. How can someone throw away a career? And those is the sort of drawback I got. And one day he would just be a beggar, that person. Friends, colleagues, and others were together in the university. So I understand. So that there is that category who I know cannot come out. Okay? Some of us can come out because, well,
you have nothing to lose.
I have nothing to lose. Right. Well, maybe I can lose my life and I can go to jail, but I'm prepared for that. I am 100% prepared for that. So that is one category. The second category is this: there are also a lot of young people in the political process, and I don't mean to be insulting to them. There are some political parties, some youth who are in the political process to make money. And some of them are actually being paid. I know political parties right now that are paying youth to be in that political organization. Because some of them from those political organizations have come to my house and have told me that I'm getting so much a salary on that. And I've said to them, we can't afford to give you salaries. But we want you, if you're committed, to be part of the, so that you can dilute those of us who are older. But we want to make a principle that politics is not about survival. If you're going to join the Zambia we want, come and make a contribution and take the risk. I took that risk myself when I was young. And as I can say, it was not very easy. And lastly, on the terms of the youth. And I must say here, in very strong terms, look, people, a society that develops is a society that uses its best people who are experienced. And you don't acquire experience when you just graduate from the university. Countries like Japan, countries like the United States, England, you will find that the people who are running the major institutions of things are not youth. It's not because we don't want. There are some youth who are gifted. But the way to learn is for the youth to be able to come and work with those who have already have the experience. At some point, those of us who are older will slide out and the young people will take those positions. We cannot have, and I've said this on other programs and I'll conclude on this now, on this one. I have said that if a person is sick, your wife is unwell, or you yourself unwell, please listen to me very much, my young brothers and sisters. When you go to the hospital in an emergency, you are looking for the best doctor who has got the experience to cure you. You are not going to the hospital to ask for a doctor who has just started practicing today, who has never practiced. Because you know that matters of life are critical. If you have been accused of falsely killing someone, and you are in jail, and you have got a bit of money, and you are looking for a lawyer, nobody goes to look for a lawyer who has never won a case in murder or in treason. You are looking for the best lawyer possible to get out of that to get you out of that jam. When you go to look for schools to take your children to go to school, you look for schools which has got a high pass rate because the teachers are experienced. Why is it that we keep on saying in this country, when it comes to politics, the people who have got experience, have achieved something, should not be considered? No, when it comes to politics, experience. Because you are perceiving politics as a game of eating. I have never been in politics to eat. I've risked my life and I've risked my income. And I think that people should be honest enough and be kind enough to me and many others who have been in this because we want to transform our country. And the young people are most welcome. But young people should not demand to be in government if you've never governed. You cannot have run a single little Kantemba and say you will be president. You can't. So I close there. We are older, we are experienced, we want to have as young people. In fact, even if we are swamped by young people, give us the opportunity to train you. Like I was given the opportunity to be trained by KK. He was 70 years old when I started working for him in 1994. He was 70 years old. But this is a man who had experience. And I think that I'm one of the most privileged individuals. I've worked with Dr. Kaunda and traveled the world and met some of the greatest giants of this world. And that is why 30 years later, after I stopped working for him, or is it 25, I am still relevant because I learned from the master. So I encourage young people, come to the Zambia we want. You will find young people there. You will find older people there. You will find women there. Let us together do this for the sake of our country. When we said Zambia we want, we did not say Zambia I want. We did not say Zambia you want. We said Zambia we want. So I'll quickly go through the other ones quickly. Yeah. I thought that was very important, Zaki. Yeah. The second last question was from Elvis. And by Elvis says that basically, I think that the main point of Elvis was that first of all, he congratulated HH. Yeah. Okay. And obviously, I cannot decongratulate HH. When there are good things that HH has done, I should be compelled to congratulate him. Yeah. Except the point that I have made, and I often made the point regularly, that it is not the job of a member of the opposition to constantly be congratulating HH. That is not my job. My job is to have a critical eye on government. Okay? And although it may appear that I'm more critical than positive, it is my job. The job of the auditor is to go and look for where there are discrepancies. The job of the auditor is not to go audit government financing or company with a view of passing you. They look for the most intricate where they can say, so that you improve the management of the company. That's what is the job of a policeman. Is not to go look for innocent people and say, ndipo this country, mulibe wakawala koma. No, the job of a police officer is to be alert to those who are going to break the law. That is why when we see a police officer, whether you've done nothing wrong or not, there is a heartbeat that misses. Whether you are a saint, if you see a police officer or a police woman in uniform, a particular heartbeat, if you are driving, you even think, is my Musongo there and whatever, because that is the job of the police officer. So all those people who like to say, oh, you opposition, Mungo Kamba, it is the job that you have given us to do. It is not in my armpit to start glorifying HH. Those of you who think he's a saint, glorify him. My role is to see where he has misstepped so I can correct him so he can correct the problem. That is my job. And I'm not doing it because I hate him. I'm doing it because it is my job. He was doing exactly the same to others from day one. When Awasa won, he started being critical. Arabi took over. HH started to be critical. He was doing the same. So please, don't come and say to us that we should not do our job. We demanded for a multi-party system. That system requires a critical evaluation by parties that are in the opposition so that government can get better. And we have to do our job. So, but I like basically the thrust of El. I think he's a very balanced man. And even if he is a member of the UPND, I can't hold it against him. I can see that he's a balanced man. Okay? Then Mark. Mark said a number of things which were of concern to me. One of the things he said was that the HH is fixing the dangers and all the bad things that the PF have done, so that we should not criticize him. Okay. He even said to me, he said, I think his words, don't condemn him because he has brought peace. Now, Mark, listen, Mark, I want to hold you as my brother. You know, you are in the UPND, I'm in another political party. When the people of Zambia decided on the 20, on the, was it when it was it on the 12th? It was on the 12th of August. When the people of Zambia in their book decided that they were going to ask the PF to sit on the bench, and they asked the UPND now, kungena makuti ndiyo wakateye bola, to go them to score. And we asked, imwe chokan moni, nda mwalepela kugolesa. Chokan moni, mukapumuleko first. Tifake mo winango. My preoccupation of those people who have asked them, kuti venango wangenemo, is kuti wakagolesa. Go and score and entertain us and give us a good game. Okay? The objective was not to put you in. The objective was you to go and score. Okay? So, you cannot say to me that because a new group of people have been put in, that all our preoccupation will be to be saying, even though in a sneak golisa, kali mamenu macho samo na wewe swenze golisa. Tawacho samo waja. Tafakamu iwe kuti ukagolisa. That is the objective. So this constant reference by both the president and UPND ministers on what the PF was doing is irresponsible. We gave them a duty as the Zambian people, and we have every right to condemn them. And I use the word condemn because that's the word he used, to condemn them if they are playing useless football and they can't score. It is our right, because we ask you there to go and score. Okay? So for you, Mark, if it is okay for you for the UPND not to score, you are free not to condemn, but don't ask me not to do so. Okay? Lastly, on this same point, not only did we put you there because we wanted you to go and score, we put you there because you promised us that you were going to score. You even gave us, you know what? In a manifakamo in a HS, kavidi in a millionaire. Nilina avo vindalama vinyinji ntumba. And in a ngana mopaja muzani wona wamene nizamba kumpasa ni ndalama. Dawa nilinazo ndalama. Muzani wona, when I get in there, how because I was a great manager at Grand Thornton, how I will bring down the exchange rate from Atichani at 17 to at Ngamanifaka. So ni golesa pai within 5 minutes nza golesa. Muzani wona chape. Kai ni HH. Ni bale ini. You start saying, mwezo kandiza za fuel. Ivo vinganikange ivo. Ine HH ine. Mani wana mamene ni wonekera so handsome and proper and whatever. Ino nizavi fikisa hivi. In fact, zina langa ingale bare. That is what he said. Okay? Then he goes there and the great boaster fails to score. Instead, he says, kabidi ine, I didn't know at paja pafupina go, penze po kumbika. Isina zira tuwa PF enze wakumbako. But you didn't know penze po kumbika. How did you not know? Kai makambati you are so intelligent. Mimi munakambila ndimo nzero maniki mungaona kutali kuti niko kumbika. And all you want is just to be worshipped. And expect all of us to be kneeling down because you think that you are rich and we should say, oh no, you are the greatest. Oh no, no, oh, whatever you say, you and your ministers and those who support you can glorify you all they want for the things they think that you've done. But the point is, there are millions of Zambians who are expecting you to achieve what you told them you would achieve. And if we remind you that you said this, don't say that we hate you. Don't tell us that we hate you. You made your own barometer. You gave us your own. Even Kunchito sometimes. What can you do, Mr. Lungu, if we employ you as a ZDA, Director of Investment? I say myself, me, I'll bring in 10 billion worth of investment, whatever. Ngavanikanga, and I'm going to the board of Lungu, manje mwabwelesa chabe 5,000. Then I start saying, but now later 5,000. But mzaleta 10 billion. Munizonda imwe chabe. Ndimoyipa imwe. Asogolere. Nichani so. No, that's not the way it is. So we are going to reward him and glorify him when he's done something great. We will be critical of him when we want him to change. And if he's done things that are wrong, we will condemn him. We will condemn him, and he should have the thick skin to accept that he's a human being like me and he's not Jesus. And I will not treat him as Jesus. He's my president. We elected him. He's my servant.
I'll take a few more calls on 0955-221515. Good morning.
Honorable Francis Mubimpika is one of movies calling you from the Saka town. Good morning to you, Zach. Good morning to you, Muhabi Lungu. How are you?
I'm very well, sir. Very well. Good morning.
Thank you very much. You're one of those people we love so much. Wonder boy of the nation. I'm not saying you're a boy, but I'm just saying wonder boy. You started a long time ago doing this thing. So you're more competent than more experienced, even more than the president himself. Yeah.
very grateful.
Yeah, you got a minute, Francis. You got a minute, Francis. Yeah, please.
Yes. So I want to say something quickly. I want to commend the opposition, Sean Temple, Zenakakindas, and other people, including the populace, for crying out to the president to say, you are there in Egypt, meanwhile there are floods here. Doesn't attend to the people. And when he came back, this time around, the advisors did the correct thing. When he just came in, he went to see the people. Voila. Very good for that. At the end of the day, pay attention more to the Zambians. Now, if you become president of this country tomorrow, or if you have to hear of the Minister of Transport and Communication, the younger people that are doing a very great job to service the people for communication sector, things to move here and there, they are being ignored by the minister and the government itself. They are giving more priority to an investor to make more money than the owners of the vehicles and the people who sweat. They're taking peanuts. Fuel keeps on going up every month. The income is not being increased. What is that you do and what others do? Because the younger drivers are crying and most cars are parked. People invested in loans to get vehicles and so most of them are parked now. Others are bad that people can't repair them. They're making peanuts from that their business. So what is it that you can advise concerning Yango? Thank you very much and continue speaking for the two of this country. We love you so much, Omar.
Thank you.
I'm very
Thank
grateful.
you very much, Francis. Let me take another one quickly on 0955-221515. That's the number they are getting us on. And let me squeeze in one important question as well. I mean, this is obviously in relation to the fact that the US underwent through elections, and of course Donald Trump is president, but he has come with his own agenda, and he has signed quite a number of executive orders, including one that directly affects us, the suspension of aid, and you know what that entails. I mean, what should we as a country be doing amidst this?
Okay, what should we be doing amidst this?
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of obviously trying to be self-sustaining, especially as far as the health is concerned.
Okay.
Health sector especially. So I'll take one. Let me take one last call, this particular one.
Hello,
Good morning to you. Your name and where are you calling us from?
This is Kefas Mosem-Sonda, advocate for industrialization and national development, calling you from Kabwe.
Kabwe. Yes, Kefas. Yeah.
Mr. Muhabi Lungu, long time. How are you, my brother?
I'm very well, and how are you?
No, you motivate me in terms of politics. You've been in UNIP, MMD, PF. You're the right man to motivate the youth. Mr. Lungu, if you became president in the coming election, I advocate for industries. What plans do you have that will surpass what the UPND are doing right now to resuscitate and rejuvenate the defunct Mulungushi textiles, which I feel that you and unit, it was functioning. You joined NMB, you saw the politics that came through, and other industries. Mm-hmm. What is it that you do different that the UPND are doing? And what is it that you have seen that has made you now not to go with the ruling party? Because I was thinking that maybe your motto is supporting the government of the day, because you supported UNIT, you supported MNC, you supported CS. Now, what is it that you have seen differently for you to form your own political party? Thank you very much, my brother, and continue to keep waiting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that was our last caller. Thank you to all that called in. Let's get to answer those, respond to those three, and we conclude.
Okay, so I will start again with the last and come my way to the first.
Right.
So, Kephas, first of all, I'm very grateful that you said kind words about me. I want to combine with also what Francis said, because both of them referred to the issue of what would I do if I became president. And of course, in terms of Francis, he said also if you become transport. But let me address the issue of this question: if you become president, I think, and I want you to hear me very carefully. I think I have enough experience, I have enough education, I have enough good judgment, I have enough character, to become the president of this republic, and I think that I could do a very good job as it. However, one of the reasons why I have never considered going for the president is because I am sick and tired of the plethora of people in this country who think that they can become president. We have cheapened the presidency, because every Jim and Jack who has made a little name for themselves, like I have made a little name for myself, or I've somehow made a little money for himself, all of us swell up with pride and arrogance and egos, and all of a sudden think that we can govern 20 million people and do it well. I abhor that. For me, it irritates me enormously, because majority of the people that put themselves up front for the presidential seat are not suitable, are not capable to become president of this republic. I have to say it very clearly. So, because it annoys me, and it's the same with many of my colleagues in the Zambia we want, we have made this position that a person should not appoint themselves presidential. Let others appoint you as being presidential. And usually in a group of 20 people, you will be able to determine who among you might be the suitable president. To give yourself personal imposed legitimacy and presidency is the most megalomaniac thing that you can do. And in this country, we've overdone it. So I want to tell you that I'm not in politics myself to become president. I think I would be a damn good president. But I'm not in politics for president, and I'm not aspiring for presidency, and I'm not aspiring for vice president, and I'm not particularly concerned whether I will be minister or not. Now, to conclude this, the reason why I decided to start it that way, because this issue keeps on being raised. Even in social media, when I make a comment, people start to insult me and start telling lies about me, I have, as I said at the beginning of the program, all my political life since 1990, when I was the student union leader at the University of Zambia, 90% of the times I've been in politics, I have been in the opposition by choice. I was in the opposition opposing Kenneth Kaunda, who my father was reporting to directly as his chief of protocol, because I thought what UNIP was doing at that particular time needed to be changed. I took that decision. And threatened my father's job. It was a personal choice. 3-4 years down the line, as I said earlier on, I made a personal decision to go back to UNIP to try and provide checks and balances for the MMD, who I thought they had reneged on the promises which they had made when they were in the opposition.
The party that you supported to get into
a party
government.
that I supported, and the party which its president offered me a job. Okay? And you can verify this. It's not, I'm not lying. I don't come to lie. You can there are people still alive who can verify what I'm saying. Because some of my colleagues who were offered jobs did get jobs from Chilu. I was the first to be called among the student union leaders, and I declined it. Okay? Okay? And that is a story maybe for another day. But the point I'm making is that when I thought that the MMD was doing wrong, I went and joined the party which I had helped to throw out, to be able to counter the mistakes and hope that the MMD would corrupt. You know what happened to me when I was doing that? I was thrown in jail for treason and murder. Of course, the judicial system then was a lot more independent than it is, and we were acquitted by Justice Chiteng. And I'll tell you what also happened to me at that point. My father was partly fired by the system, because it was said that how can you have a father who is at State House serving the chief of protocol and permanent secretary to the president of Zambia, whose child is on the opposition being special assistant to Kenneth Kaunda. They started to bring Mingalato against my father. Okay? And on the day my father was told to stay home 3 months after I had been appointed as a special assistant for KK, and was stayed home for 1 year, full government salary, because there was nothing that my father did. Told personally to go home. On the day I was arrested on the 4th of July, okay, 1996, my father received his letter of early retirement. They retired my father. Okay? Partly, I'm not saying all but partly, and a significant part, because his son was part of the opposition. I made my sacrifices. When the PF were in government doing things which I thought were wrong, like removing judges under Judge Chikopa, you remember that incident? I was in the opposition. Okay? So here I've told you at least 3 times for which I made a personal choice to be in the opposition and to confront government. This is the 4th time I'm doing it as Muhabi Lungu. And I'm doing it not because I dislike HH. I happen to think that some of the things he's doing may be good. But the majority of the things he's doing, in my view, are destructive for this country. And if you want me to come and talk specifically about what I think, why I think HH is destructive, invite me so we can discuss just those issues. I think he's destructive for this country. People may love him. People may think he's a messiah. I don't, because I think he's a very deceptive man who works on what he thinks is the non-intellectual capacity of the Zambians to see through him. I can see through him, and I know millions of Zambians can see through him. And I'm not being insulted. And I can give you some examples, but I said it's not the basis of this show. Yeah. Let me just make one other issue on this issue, which I didn't want. I came here for something else, okay? This idea that I was PF, okay? I have said that I served as a civil servant in the PF administration. I have never been PF myself. Never. I've belonged to just 2 political parties, UNIP and PF. And MMD. MMD twice when they started the revolution, and later when I was asked to join by RB. Yeah. UNIP twice before the one party state, when it was in one party, all of us were UNIPs, we had cards. Okay? And later when I decided to join them. And both of those political parties expelled me because I don't tolerate nonsense. Even when I'm part of your group, if you've done something wrong, even if you are President Kaunda, I will say to you, sir, I believe that this is wrong. Okay? And I said the same thing to Neves. The problem in this country, and that is why many of these presidential wannabes irritate me. The notion in this country is that if you are president, somehow you are above criticism. Somehow you have become infallible and people can't tell you that you can be wrong. For me, if you are the president of the party, and if you haven't taken a bath properly, and maybe your armpits have got an odor, and then you are going to meet diplomats and so on, you can guarantee, I will tell you that, Mr. President, I think that you are not well dressed, and I think that maybe you need to take a bath. Most Zambians find that very challenging to do. And I want to ask fellow Zambians, please let us be each other's keepers. and be able to tell each other that if I'm smelling, don't be afraid to tell me that I'm smelling. Don't be afraid. You will only help me if you tell me that I'm smelling so I can go and take a bath. Okay? Rather than you just closing your nose and letting me sit in a meeting when you know that I'm smelling. That Zambian attitude, that mindset must change. So it must change because the president is not God. President is not Jesus. President is, he had to be he might be my countryman. I will not cower away. Whether you come at me with your guns, whether you come to arrest me, for me, and I urge every Zambian to take this approach, not to disrespect, not to have honor for a position, but not to give reverence to a president, because reverence is only for God. I will give you respect, I will give you honor, I will never give you reverence, because that is only for God. So I hope that I've cleared that. I'm not disassociating myself from the PF. I was a civil servant. I was not a member of PF. There were many times that senior members of the PF, including President Michael Sata themselves, pushed for me to become a member of PF. And I gave my reasons why I didn't at that time. Not that I'm not prepared to work with them, because I think that we in the opposition should be able to work together for the next election. So the other two questions are very important. Although I've spent too much time on this, but I thought that it was important.
It was important that you clear yourself
Zaki,
as well.
You asked about a very important question about Donald Trump and withdrawing aid. There are two ways to answer this, okay? The first one is a simple agreement with the fact that a country must try to be as self-sustaining as possible. I think that there is no debate on that. And in order to justify that we agree on that, in our manifesto in the Zambia We Want, this document that we are supposed to have been discussing for most of it, okay?
Yes.
We make the point, and I'll read it again to you and explain it so that you know that I'm not just guessing. It says, delivering prosperity through good governance, transformation, innovation, and deriving optimum benefits from natural resources. The only way in which we can finance our own health sector and our own education sector and so on is if we are able to collect sufficient revenue from the companies that are in Zambia, the mines, the traders, everyone, because that is where government gets its money. If you are going to give incentives to every Jim and Jack, you will not collect sufficient tax revenue in order for you to cover the withdrawn aid from Donald Trump. So that is the reason why we say it's very important that we as Zambian should own a significant proportion of the means of production. We should own a significant proportion of our own natural resources. And we should be able to derive through a prudent fiscal policy sufficient revenue in order for us to take care of ourselves. That is one. Now, let me also take the opportunity to answer Kefas's question, because his question was about industrialization. In this manifesto, we have been very clear. And you remember at the beginning of the show, I said to you, when you said, do you remember a time when Zambia was the Zambia we wanted? And I said, it was during that time when there was industrialization. Right. We noted in our manifesto. And we say that the objective of our manifesto would be to reindustrialize again. And we said that the basis upon which that industrialization will happen will be on the basis of Zambianization and on the basis of us owning a significant portion of resources and giving only the right incentives which will make sure that businesses are able to survive, but that businesses do not cheat the tax revenue. Okay? So we are very conscious that industrialization is... You can, in fact, when we say that period was very good for us, it was because significant output was industrial output. Right now in this country, significant output is trading. A country should not be like that. Okay? So, Vakefas, we are very strong in the issue of industrialization, and we do intend to pursue it very aggressively. So I think that I've answered. Now, let me conclude on the question of Donald Trump and aid. And here I take a personal view. I want to give you a personal view. There was a book written a couple of years ago by Dambisa Moyo, who I know very well.
Right.
Okay, she's a friend. I can say she's a friend, and I can even say partly family, because I worked very closely with the father, Dr. Stephen Moyo. When I was special assistant for KK, we come from the same area, and so on. I do believe that it is very dangerous for the country to depend, or any country to depend on aid. And I do believe there is such a thing as dead aid. But I don't think that it is a correct assumption to condemn all forms of aid. It is not a correct one, both from the perspective of the recipient as well as from the perspective of the giver, of the donor. One of the reasons the American system created USAID and the process of donating and helping the whole world, not only Africa, was because they wanted to create a world order which was dependent on each other, that those who have not should be assisted by those who do not have. It is a Christian principle, and we are, as a Christian country. So those who say, oh no, let him do whatever he wants and whatever. Donald Trump is changing a very fundamental world order, which was created after the Second World War. And if we are not careful with how we dismantle this world order, we could regress into a position where you start having a lot of wars, coups, etc., throughout Africa. And I don't think that that is a good thing simply because we say, oh, he's taking care of America. I think that it's a very dangerous path, which I think that the current Republican administration is going through. And I'm not afraid to say that. And that's why I say this is my personal view. I don't want to implicate the Zambia we want. Obviously, if we get into government as Zambia we want, I will have some form of influence, hopefully. Okay. I hope I'll be appointed, whoever the president will be or whatever, to be part of the process. But it will not stop me from giving my advice. Secondly, in terms of aid, because again, I think that this is very important. Okay. Look, the war right now in Ukraine, one of the most important elements that comes out, negotiate and sign a negotiation regarding raw materials, rare earth from Ukraine. Let us be realistic. You must begin with the world the way it is. In this world we live in, those who have power tend to get their way. And sometimes in their negotiation with you, they get a bigger share than what they are responsible for. Sometimes it is their responsibility to give back to the community who they have cheated. So some of the mining houses here, when they are coming to set up in a particular area, okay, we talk about what is the social responsibility of that company to that community. And they have to put in the kitty. If they're going to pollute the dam, it is their responsibility to clean it. If people have died, it's their responsibility to compensate. Okay? And they have to put a fund to help the community because they are mining and polluting the area. Some of this aid that has been given by the Americans, the British, the Swedes, and the whatever, it is a form of reparation to what they did to us. And you can't say to us that we don't demand. We were enslaved for 400 years. We were colonized and beaten for more than 300 years. And some of this is a policy which was made by those governments for some form of reparation. You can't tell me that we cannot have some form of reparation because you want to create the impression that aid is bad. No. And some of these people are cheating us every day. The trade between us and the powerful economy is not fair trade. I'm supposed to receive more for my copper than what I receive. So if they give me some of the money, then I should say, no, don't give me. No, because no, gentlemen, let us be realistic about this. We don't want aid. Well, maybe let me put it the other way. The ideal situation is that we should be self-reliant and be able to finance everything on our own. The truth of the matter is that every nation, including Europe after the Second World War, there was what was called the Marshall Plan. If the Marshall Plan was not there from the Americans, Europe would not be where it is today. After the Second World War, even the vanquished, the Japanese, the Americans, pushed money in there. If they didn't do so, Japan would not be where it is. The question is it sustainable? Okay, so at some point you have to cut it off, but I think that you understand what I'm saying. So let me conclude with the last one. Francis was talking about Uber, I think. Yangu, sorry. He was talking about Yangu and what we would do as a Zambia we want in terms of Yangu. Now, obviously, the manifesto sets a number of guiding principles. and what we would call a policy framework. And where we think that there is need to be able to discuss beyond just those guiding principles, you do so, as we have done in the manifesto.
Right.
But the term of executing a manifesto has got three components, basically, okay? You have the guiding principle and the policy framework, which is what most manifestos are all about. But in order to graduate that towards implementation, you then go to what we call a level of programs. Okay, so the ideological issue, which takes to policy guidelines, drops to the program. So then there are programs which you then do. Usually are not contained in a manifesto. They are contained in a more detailed documentation. Okay. Now, even at the level of programs, you then drop it further to the level of projects. Okay. Again, manifestos don't contain, usually they do not contain projects. Okay. So what will happen is that as we grow the party, we will now drop down to the level of programs and projects. But realistically speaking, programs and projects actually happen when you now get into government, because now you have got access to all of the information that is there. For example, if we want a specific program for KCM and Mopani as a government, I cannot draw that up now because I'm not aware, privy to the negotiations and to what they agreed. I can only come up with such a program once I know what is there. That is why it is wrong to start making fake promises to people and say that you will keep them. Okay, so in short, Francis, we did not go to the level of projects and programs. So I would be lying to you to say that we specifically mentioned the angle. Yeah. But what will happen is that because we have got a section here about transport, and when it is time for us to come up with programs and projects, we will be able to sit with you, the people who are owning Yangos and so on, and have a discussion around your industry, so that we can be able to understand it from your perspective and how your business perhaps interacts with those who are owning taxis or something, so that we can come up with a program and a project frame which is helpful to both those who are operating Yangus as well as to those who are operating general taxis and others. That requires a great degree of consultation. That is why we say the Zambia we want, because we are not saying that we know it all. I don't know it all. I think that I'm well experienced, and I think that I'm fairly educated, and I think that I'm not too dumb. Okay? But I cannot create the impression like HH creates that I'm the smartest person in the world. There are many things I don't know. I need to sit down with you and to be able to discuss. So please come with us, come and talk to us, and we'll be able to understand the industry more, and we'll come up to the levels of projects and programs.
Mr. Muhabi Lungu, he is Zambia We Want party spokesperson in his acting capacity. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation and for fulfilling it. We are grateful. On a lighter note, at the time you were appointed as deputy ambassador to the Congo. I'm sure my brothers and sisters in Congo thought that you were probably related to the president.
No, they did.
Joseph Kabila at the time.
Well, I had two things. You think I look like Kabila? Yes. No, actually, it's true. Especially when I grow the beard, because there was a time when when I reached 50 years, I shaved it all off, and I said I would grow it back when I'm 55, and then I'll see whether I like it. If I don't, I'll shave it off.
Did you ever to meet him though?
I did meet him. Yeah. I did meet President Kabila, I think, on 3 occasions. Yeah. I mean, there were many times where I was acting or the charge, and there were times when it required that we meet him. And many Congolese actually said I looked like him. You know, they thought that I was his brother. Of course, I'm slightly older. I think I'm 2 years older than he is. Yeah. No, 3 years older than he is. Yeah. But there was a lot of that. Yeah. And I also had a situation where many of my diplomatic colleagues thought I was a brother to Lungu. Because of the name. And I had to constantly say, no, we are not related. We come from the same province, but
not related at all.
Not related, not one single bit.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's interesting.
I think he had 2 Lungus as deputy ambassadors. I mean,
there was Lungu
Goodwill.
Goodwill.
Yes.
Yeah. And as far as I know, there's no relationship.
Great.
Lungu is one of the most. It's like Mulenga among the Bemba.
It's quite a common name.
That is right. Yeah. It's a very
thanks
name.
a lot for coming. We appreciate that you made it, and of course, we can only wish you all the best in this journey.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and congratulations on the launch of both the Constitution and Manifestos.
Thank you. I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
And please, I can only say, please come and be with us. This party belongs to all of you. It is we. Please come and we do this together.
Great. Thank you. And well, to you, our listeners, we appreciate that you obviously followed our conversation, and those that managed to participate by way of calling. Thank you very much. And thank you to our partner radio stations that carried our program live on their various platforms. Tuesday and Thursday burning issue. From us all is take care of yourselves, more so of each other. Bye-bye.
Tune in next week for another edition of The Burning Issue, and thank you for your participation.